Hello folks, and welcome today to Our Game with myself, Shane Stapleton. No Michael Verney this week, but we've more than an able deputy in Colm Keys of the Irish Independent. We're going to be talking about his book, Chasing Sam Maguire, in a little bit. Brilliant book there. I have a copy of it myself here, which was delightfully sent out to me. So Colm, first off, how are things with you?
Very good, Shane, and thanks for having me on. Great to be joining Our Game in the absence of my colleague Michael.
Is he as esteemed as he likes to make out?
Oh, he's very esteemed and honourable and all of those things you'd associate. He has the esteem of a Supreme Court judge in matters hurling. We always refer to him for anything like that. So, yeah. No, he's a great colleague.
Can you tell us your thoughts on how the club championship has been since, obviously the inter-county wound up there quite a while ago? Have you enjoyed what you've seen?
Not really, Shane. I have to be quite blunt about it. I've been at some pretty poor matches. The ill-fated Mayo County final, I was up there in Castlebar on that slightly wet evening. And believe me, it was every bit as bad and worse. And I know, obviously, the Ballina manager has come out and launched a defence of that. And that's obviously fair enough. And I'd have to say I'd be as fair as I could be on these things. But that was a really, really poor standard match that evening. Low on entertainment. I'm not sure whether people streamed out that day. I'm not sure that's the reason. Maybe they went for a cup of coffee around the back. I couldn't say that. But it was a poor quality match. And I've seen quite a few in terms of quality. Now, I'll add, Trillick and Scottstown was a fantastic game last weekend. I really enjoyed that. One of the reasons was, and I think there's probably something in this, is that both sides really pressed up on the kick-out, particularly Scottstown really went after the Trillick kick-out. It made for great entertainment with some great battles, particularly out around the middle of the park between Richie Donnelly and Darren Hughes. Obviously, it's been mentioned. But it was a fantastic battle, and they really both went out. And the scoreline reflects that, even though it was extra time. There was lots of opportunities created. So from that point of view, that was a particularly good game. It stood out for me. But by and large, I think some of the county championships were poor. I think there's a very the level of caution and conservatism has really seeped into club football as well. Obviously, hurling's a bit different as well, and obviously that's a separate argument. But in terms of the club football championships, there has been now in Ulster, and Ulster can get a bad rep. The entertainment has been really good. I was also at Gowna and Glenties, and after a slow enough start to that game, things broke out there too. And if you look at there's been a point, games have gone to extra time. There are so many close games and that, but everywhere else just hasn't been great.
Yeah, there's been a lot of games where you're expecting something big and then it hasn't quite popped. But this weekend, O'Loughlin Gaels are up against Na Fianna, and having watched O'Loughlin's in a couple of their games, and your venerable colleague Verney, he said that O'Loughlin's would lose against both Mount Leinster and Kilcormac, but at the same time he predicted O'Loughlin's to win Leinster. So figure that one out for me.
I can't understand that. That's a three-card trick in some way, isn't it? I don't understand that one there. That's you'll have to prize the logic out of that from.
Yeah, well, I hauled him over the coals in front of Mark Bergen of O'Loughlin Gaels the other day when we had him on the show, so I wasn't going to let that one go. But their match this weekend against Na Fianna, and to be fair to Na Fianna, this is their first time in Leinster, and they've gotten all the way to the final, beating Naas the last day, and before that, Raharney of Westmeath. They've been quite impressive. I'd have to say, this is a game I am looking forward to, especially on the Croke Park turf.
Yeah, and to achieve that without Donald Burke, and obviously Donald Burke is laid up with a very significant injury. I thought Donald Burke would have been back by now, and I did note he said on Monday when he was speaking to the media, not this weekend, but potentially if they were to get over this hurdle, obviously he might look at an All-Ireland semi-final. It's a very serious and significant injury for any sportsman for what has happened to him. But often in a player of that stature's absence, sometimes the compensation from everybody else brings more out of those who are left behind. I always recall Colm Cooper and the despair around Kerry in 2014 when he did his knee in the All-Ireland Club semi-final, and it was Eamon Fitzmaurice's second year. The general consensus would be you can write off Kerry, and they came and won an All-Ireland title that year without their marquee player. And Na Fianna have come, obviously, this far, won a Dublin championship that they were despairingly close to with Donald Burke a few years back against Kilmacud, and they've come strong, and they've picked off two teams. And look, beating Naas is a pretty good standard. Naas are a very, very decent team operating at a high level in Leinster now and have consistently showed that. So for Na Fianna to push by them in that respect is showing good form. Obviously, Brian Ryan is a big addition to them, and obviously he's been with Limerick during he was on the Limerick squad during COVID, and he's been pushed through, and he's a big addition to them. And obviously Liam Rush is a leader, and so from that point of view, they have leadership and strong characters in that team, and they have forwards too. That can score, and that's something if you were to debit O'Loughlin Gaels in some way, and obviously they dethroned Ballyhale Shamrocks. But I just question whether they have the forwards to keep winning and to keep pressing on in this All-Ireland Club Championship.
Actually, interestingly enough, Mikey Butler reckons that, about Croke Park, it will suit us. Our forwards are lightning fast. They'll love it up there, and I think they'll really shine. So I'd say Owen Wall is probably the first one he's thinking of when he says that. But Conor Heary's another guy who's, been absolutely brilliant in the half forward line. Just as you mentioned, Donald Burke being out and the team still excelling and maybe stepping up more so than they normally would because he's not there. Matty Donnelly being out for Trillick this year, along with Mikey Gallagher, isn't it mad the way teams can do this?
Isn't it just? I mean, and obviously the Tyrone Championship is such a difficult championship to win. I mean, that there has been no repeat success there for, I think it's almost 2 decades at this stage. It's really hard. So without Matty Donnelly, others have stepped up, and obviously his brother Richie is one of those to really step up, and Stevie O'Donnell, that was very good for them the last day, got the goal and the point. So, or Sean O'Donnell got the goal and the point the last day. So, yes, players do take on added responsibility. They're not looking around for their main man all the time, and leaving the onus on him to dig them out of the hole. They went after it themselves, and they got results out of it. And Trinnick won't say they were unlucky. I think the better team won last weekend, but they came so close to it. Without a player of Matty Donnelly's stature, you'd wonder, put him back in, and maybe we are looking at a potential repeat in Tyrone, a successful defence next year.
Did it stand out to you last week watching, when Scottstown had panned over to David McCaig and their backroom team at one stage, and you see Kevin O'Brien, the former Corofin manager who led them to 3 in a row All-Irelands, that he's there on the sideline. I mean, potentially, you never know, he could be coming up against Corofin at some stage, and we saw Jerome Johnston step down from his role last year because he didn't want to come up against his sons in Kilcoo. Like, if you go further afield, it could end up, in time you're facing your own, which is probably a slightly awkward one, to say the least.
It is that Kevin O'Brien link, and I'm not sure has it been made official in any sense, but I'm sure he's in an advisory. It looks like, I mean, we can't say for certain he's certainly not listed, but it looks like he's in an advisory capacity. They actually have Peter Donnelly as well, who has been around quite a few counties, namely Tyrone, but he's been with Cavan and Monaghan as well in recent times. So he's a lot of experience at intercounty level and now bringing that to Scottstown. But it's always an interesting dynamic for any manager to be facing or have an involvement against his old team, particularly a guy that was involved in a 3 in a row and would be aware of a lot of the talent, even though the Corofin team seems to be changing quite significantly as well, even since the 3 in a row. You see their Farrahers are now on making an impact off the bench. Obviously, Gary Sice is still there, Kieran Malloy and Liam Silk. But by and large, there's new players coming through, and that's Corofin. But it can be an awkward dynamic if a manager and our manager, or even in this case, as we think, an advisor is coming up against his old team. But obviously Scottstown and Corofin have to go and win their provincial titles, and even at that, I think they can only schedule to meet in an All-Ireland final, because the draw is Ulster and Leinster this year, or in January.
Yeah, so just to come back then to Na Fianna, and without Donald Burke, and Shane Barrett hasn't been starting every game. He came on the last day. He's another former Dublin player up until a couple of years ago. Like, they have forwards that have really stepped up. Colin Curry, Sean Curry's been excellent, and Colin's taken over the frees, and Donald Burke was telling me the other day that all the way up, Colin used to take the frees ahead of him. So it's nothing new to him. They have the likes of Kieran Stacey, who's been very good, AJ Murphy, who scored a hat-trick against Crokes not so long ago. But you're coming up against a defence that has two current All-Stars and Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler. And let's be fair, Paddy Deegan isn't exactly a slouch either. The man is a monster, particularly at club level. Are realistically Na Fianna going to be able to get enough scores here to get over the line?
You make a very good point about that defence. It's really, when you say that in the context of a club team, and we're used to the Cody Mullen, TJ Reid triumvirate in terms of attack, and obviously Colin Fennelly there as well. You're used to that with Ballyhale at one end. But the flip of that almost is that Deegan, Butler, Hugh Lawler. Hugh Lawler is just improving. He just seems to improve with every game over the last couple of years. He's a really strong, forceful attack out in front. I love the way Hugh Lawler gets out in front and almost plays from the front and is willing to go get out ahead of Aaron Gillane, get out ahead of whoever he's picking up. It's great. It's great to watch, and it's great to watch a defender like that. And I think he's as good as anyone for being able to step out in front and gather a ball. And Paddy Deegan obviously suffered in the All-Ireland final in 2022, but came back so strong this year, and that's the measure of him. And he has that capacity to play centre back, or if it's midfield, they had him up front, up at full forward a few years back as well. Well able to deliver, and obviously he got the score. He got the defining score as well earlier this year too. So all of those things play into it. I think that's a really strong defence. They can pick and choose which of the Currys they want to close down, whoever they want to close down. I think it's great options, and I'd be inclined to agree with you that however further O'Loughlin Gaels will progress, and obviously they're going up the line, I do think they have the defence to close down those Na Fianna threats. Yeah, and the only thing I wonder, can Na Fianna find a way to, I mean, obviously nobody's really going to expose Hugh Lawler, but find a matchup that he wouldn't like. He'd love someone like he had the last day, James Morgan, James Gorman, a big physical player, someone to wrestle with. So do you put in someone like an AJ Murphy? Colin Curry's obviously a smaller, nippier size profile. He's not a small man, but you know what I mean? So maybe they can go after him that way, but I just don't see Na Fianna scoring enough here. If Donald Burke was playing, I'd probably be thinking more 50-50, but I'm going 60-40 O'Loughlin's. Yeah, and I'd be inclined. I think this is where they will really miss Donald Burke, because I think Donald Burke obviously has that long-range shooting ability, and some of his scores, obviously in a Dublin context earlier this year and last year, have been magnificent. But I think Hugh Lawler has the measure of any shape or size of a forward. I think he's equally able to mark a faster, nippier player because of that ability, that speed of thought and speed of movement that he has to get out in front. It's almost like he's a bigger version of Mikey Butler in some respects. He can really, and the ball sticks to him too. So I think he's a great competitor. And I don't really think, Shane, it makes that much difference what Na Fianna try to dislodge him in that respect, because I think he would command that area regardless. I think he's in such good form. And Paul O'D had to go off injured early in the second half, only at the weekend there. So I don't know if he's going to be right. He's been in and around the Dublin panel. So again, I'd be going O'Loughlin's. Would you be the same? I am. Yeah, I would think O'Loughlin's. I think, look, obviously that the form line is there from beating Ballyhale, albeit maybe not a Ballyhale team that has been going as well and maybe just has reached the end of the line for now. I do think they will regenerate and come again. But it's been a long cycle for them, and when you include the contribution to the Kilkenny team of some of their protagonists, there comes a time in Corofin, they all find it, that the end of the line comes, and that's that. And they were probably ripe for picking off in Kilkenny this year, but by extension, I think O'Loughlin Gaels will kick on and will win the Leinster title.
And so if we jump over to the other provincial final, then I suppose the curtain raiser, 𝘰𝘓 Crokes against Naas, they won't see it as a curtain raiser, but it's the third year in a row that they've met in the Leinster Championship. Both teams are 3 in a row county title winners, but Crokes won in 21 by 14 points to 7. Remember, we had water breaks back then.
That's right.
2022, they won 3-14 to 14, so it was a bit more comprehensive. And Paul Mannion missed both games. Now, Derek Irwin missed that 2021 final. Do you find it difficult to go against the Crokes team with Mannion and Shane Walsh?
I do, but I do think Naas will improve on those two outings. I think they're probably getting better. If you look at Derek Irwin's contribution the last time against St. Lomans, he scored 1-7. I mean, he's a really elusive player. But you said it there, Mannion back for these games, playing almost as well as he has ever played for Dublin. And he had a great spell from 17 through to 19 with Dublin. But he's regained his hunger. He's regained that zest. I covered the Dublin County final, and a couple of the points he put over were just magnificent. I mean, we talk about David Clifford all the time, but we can talk about Paul Mannion in much the same breath for some of the things that he can pull off on a football pitch are just great to watch as well. And just those two scores in the county final, kicking them on the run, that high looping kick that he has, it's a joy to watch. Shane Walsh hasn't been playing as well, and indeed in last year's he did well enough in last year's Leinster Championship. He probably tapered off a bit after that, but he seems to be playing with a bit more freedom, I would say, and he's certainly getting fitter. He didn't look all that fit in the earlier Dublin Championship games for sure, but I think he's probably more at ease with the fact that he's a 𝘰𝘓 player this year than he was last year. I think that probably burdened him, and I think he admitted as much himself in recent times that, you know, a lot, and even dealing with the season he had, and even though he's into his 30s now, or early around that mark now, he probably found it difficult to deal with the season he had for Galway even, and there was a lot coming at him. I think he's unburdened by all that now, and it's probably starting to show in his performances. He's on the ball a lot. I still think he hasn't just really skinned the defence in the way that we know he can do it. Maybe that's coming this Saturday, perhaps. But I think the fact that Paul Mannion is back, and, you know, 𝘰𝘓 are always able to find a player to fill a gap. They're always able to find a player to fill a gap. And some of their best players, I mean, there's a guy now, Dan O'Brien, at cornerback. As a club player, he is as good as there is out there as a defender. On the ball, he just makes such great decisions, joining the attack whenever. I think he's as good a consistent club player over the last few years as there has been. Obviously, Mannion and Walsh and these guys take their games to another level. But without ever stepping up to county level, Dan O'Brien is right there. And similarly, Darragh Mullen and Shane Cunningham as well. So they have a lot going for them. But the biggest thing they have going for them is that Paul Mannion is back. Not only back, he's playing really, really well. But notwithstanding that, Naas are improving. The first 3 in a row in Kildare, that's something since the 1950s as well. And they've kicked on, dug themselves out of a difficult position against St. Lomans. And when they got to extra time, they kicked on and won well. So that's a good sign for them too. A lot of their players are improving. Alex Byrne being one as well, in addition to Kerwin. He seems to be kicking on and playing really well as well. So, look, I do think they'll be closer. But in Croke Park, you just have a vision of Mannion doing a few extraordinary things, and maybe Walsh finding gaps that he hasn't just been finding so much. Notwithstanding, he got a terrific goal in the county final as well. That should be mentioned too, that, you know, he took off on a counter. But all around, I think 𝘰𝘓 are at ease. They're already champions and they're enjoying their defence, and I do think they'll kick on and win.
Yeah, and I even think in the past, like, Shane Horan could start, or maybe he won't, but like, he's a former Offaly player. You have Cian O'Connor, who's been around Dublin panels. Sometimes he comes off the bench, sometimes he starts. Like, they have that depth that you're talking about. The only question is, I wonder, you know, why sometimes a team comes close to the precipice, as 𝘰𝘓 did against Raheny in the county championship, almost get knocked out. Sometimes that can spur you on. We've seen Ballyhale against like Rhinas and St. Thomas's before, and they're right there on the cusp, but they kick on and win the All-Ireland anyway. On the last day out, 𝘬𝘳𝘰𝘮 pushed Crokes very, very hard towards the end of the game. Do we see now a Crokes team that are vulnerable, or are they just going to kick on now when the real tests begin?
Well, Shane, I'd suggest for any team that's been on the go for as long as Crokes are, and you must remember this is the the third year of their cycle, say that have been full year cycles. They obviously went into February in 2021, 2022 with the Kilcool game, and they went to the end of January then with the Glen game last year. So they're into the third full year cycle of what they're at. So you will have dips like that. And you mentioned Ballyhale and Rhinos, and there's been times when Ballyhale have, you know, looked on edge, and they were in a similar cycle. So sometimes they have to pick and choose their battles. And you might say, well, can you pick and choose your battle in a semi-final? I think there was probably an element of complacency in subconsciously. They felt that they would probably just get over the line against Raheny that day, and were almost caught. And Raheny are an improving team, and you might say, well, how could you be complacent against a team that has Brian Fenton running the show for them? Yeah, that's maybe something. But a team that's on a cycle like that sometimes just has to pick and choose their moments, and they almost do it subconsciously. I think that was probably the case there. But since then, I think they were probably still always in control, even though RD came back at them early in the second half and shut down that gap quite quickly. I do think Crokes would always be in control. And I think when they get to Croke Park, they'll become a different team again.
So I want to talk now about your book, Chasing Sam Maguire. So the Sam Maguire Cup itself has been around for almost 100 years. And in this book, you're celebrating the heartbreak and the glory of the first 50 years of its history. So, number one, how painstaking was it putting... I presume this was a labor of love, because the amount of detail in this thing is absolutely incredible. And photographs and different bits of teams and everything. What did it take to put this together?
Well, the seed was sown initially by my co-author, Dermot Riley, who we'd be in touch, and he's a great interest in the history and heritage, obviously, of the GAA and what has happened in the past. And he asked me one day, do you know the clubs? Where would I get the clubs of all the players who played in All-Ireland finals, or a record of who played in All-Ireland finals? And there are records of the teams there with initials, by and large initial. And if you look at an old program from the 1950s or the 40s, all you will get is an initial. You won't get the clubs. And you won't get the nicknames even. And there were so many nicknames in the past. And that was the genesis for this. Dermot asking me one day, where would I get it? And I thought, yeah, it should be somewhere. Someone should have a record of this somewhere. I says, I'll go and search. And I asked and I asked and I asked and I looked and all of that. But I quickly realized this isn't available. So we set about trying to collate the All-Ireland final teams and their clubs. And obviously there's extended panels. We've included extended panels. The programs will only ever have included 20 names, 5 subs, 6 subs laterally, but 5 subs generally, and sometimes a program, but there was no consistency to it. So we trawled, and we trawled through the archives, local papers, national papers, club histories, to see who was involved, tried to cross-check it, validate it, come up with what we could. And quite quickly, we realized then, and you'll see it in the formatting there of the clubs, we include multiple clubs for some players because they moved around so often. And between there it is, yeah. That's it, yeah. So, yeah. Like, let's take 1949 with Cavan. They lost to Meath in the All-Ireland final. Over half of the Cavan team were playing outside of Cavan that year, either in Dublin, some were playing in Louth. There was the Gunnar Brady was playing with Garda in Cork that year too. So they were playing with 4 other different counties as well as Cavan. So players moved around so much. A club could fold one year and they'd all move to the neighboring club then, or they'd move to various clubs. So it was very, very difficult to trace. And even at that, I'm quite sure we have omissions there as well. There is no definitive way of telling, and there's no record of this. And quite often, players would have moonlighted with different clubs, and someone would say, well, such and such played with a club down in Galway in a particular year, but you might find he was illegal. Or so clubs moved around and players moved around and clubs folded. We did our absolute best we were 8 years tracking all this. And of course, we had great help from people up and down the country. There are keepers of the record in so many counties. There are people who assiduously gather information. And we had help from people from there's a man in Mayo who would have helped James Rock. He just loves to gather this information. He's a steward with the Connacht Council, and you'd see him up in McHale Park and in Castlebar. And there's another man, Pat Dunnigan, down in Offaly. Fantastic help for that. George Cartwright in Cavan. You go through all of these people, and they keep the records. And I hope that the GAA can harness and harvest their work in time to build a much better database that's there and a much better set of records for all of these things into the future. And I believe it is happening, and it is coming on stream in the next couple of years, that the records for All-Ireland Championships and inter-county games will be significantly progressed in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm just looking there and I'm seeing some interesting stats like gate receipts in certain finals. 1948, the gate receipts were £6,129, so €7,783. Like, I just like, sort of the level of detail is incredible. Is there anything that really kind of, anything that struck you or knocked you for six? Any particular bits of data or factoids or whatever? Did anything bowl you over?
Well, actually, one thing jumped out at me, and I'm a long time obviously covering Gaelic games, and I wasn't aware that up until 1945, I knew in the initial stages, up until 1945, it was no sideline kick. The ball was thrown in for a sideline. That only
like
changed.
AFL, backwards.
Thrown in like that. Yeah. The ball was thrown in instead of kicked up to 1945. That grabbed me. A small thing, but nonetheless, it grabbed me and during the research. But we actually, not only the teams and those details, but then we said and even at that stage, I was never sure, well, are we going to publish this, or how will we publish this? We started to gather information around the All-Ireland finals themselves, what happened on the day, and we included details like that about gate receipts, but also you'll see final miscellany and some of the statistics around that. We produce a set of facts and observations from around that year or that particular final. And then we included some statistics and events and facts of a social context, globally and nationally. You'll probably see it there as well, that we included that just to set context. And then we started to research the championships themselves. And obviously that led to so much detail after that. And that was really exhaustive, to go through the archive of every particular championship. And not only would we trawl through the national papers, but you go to the local papers. Some great local papers back in the 40s and 50s covered very extensive coverage of Gaelic games. You take the Anglo-Celt was a primary example there of a local newspaper that not only around Cavan, but they would cover the whole of Ulster in that time. You'd extract a lot of information out of that, and the Meath Chronicle, Drogheda Independent, papers like that, the Kerryman, you get a lot out of them. And obviously you would cross-reference between them all. I mean, even to establish the scorers, to identify exactly the scorers in all the All-Ireland finals, you could have two different newspaper reports that would be different with regard to the scorers. So that level of accuracy might not have always been there, but you'd always find the local papers would have definitive word on it. So there was a great help to go back to that. So obviously that meant that the index of the book, Shane, is 29 pages. So there's a lot of names. I couldn't believe the index. And obviously there's potentially a lot of grandfathers and maybe even great grandfathers at this stage who feature in that book. Players from Waterford, Tipperary. Another thing that struck me, and enjoy this, I could not believe how good a footballer, and I've often heard it that Babs Keating was a great footballer, until you go back and read the reports through the 1960s and into the early 1970s as well, how prolific he was at football. That really shone. And I suppose the other thing would be some of those players from lesser counties. Mickey Kearns from Sligo really stood out to me in my research, how good he was. He could score 13, 14 points, carry the team on his back. In 60-minute games, he was able to produce that. A really fantastic footballer. Again, I would have heard a lot about Mickey Kearns from Sligo, and actually we honoured him in our Hall of Fame with the Gaelic Writers Association recently. And he was there for that event. But it came across to me how prolific he was and how good. And obviously Packy McGarty from Leitrim as well. So we tried to shine a light on as many of these names, players that wouldn't necessarily have made All-Ireland finals. The Sean O'Neill and Mick O'Dwyer on the cover, and that's a picture from 1968, the great Kerry Down All-Ireland final that Down won for the third time. But we tried to shine a light on players from the lesser counties. So there's a lot of information, let's say, about the foothills of those championships as well, that's contained in the book. But look, we wanted to bring together a concise record of the All-Ireland Championships in the time of Sam Maguire. It's the first 50 years because the content became so great. We had so much. We had to divide it in two. We hope to produce a second part for the anniversary of Sam Maguire in 1928. It'll actually be presented for the 100th time in 1920 or in 2027, but in 2028 then it's the 100th anniversary of the first presentation. Obviously Kildare won that, but that's what we hope to update it, bring it up to speed, bring it up to the current date in 4 years' time.
Well, look, best of luck with it. I know it's an absolute labour of love. You can just see even by going through it, it's beautifully presented. So best of luck with that column, and hopefully we'll be chatting again soon.
Shane, thanks very much for having me on. Great to be here.
No problem at all. Okay, delighted to say we're joined now by Austin Gleeson. I think, Austin, you might have your microphone muted, so there hopefully is a button to press to unmute yourself. Oh yeah, no, we can hear you now. How are things with you, Austin?
All good, all good. Can't complain, Shane. How are you?
Sure, not too bad. Have you, like, obviously it came out a couple of months ago that you're taking a bit of time away from hurling. You won't be hurling for Waterford next year. When did you last pick up a hurley?
The last time I suppose was probably the quarter final against 𝘱𝘂𝘴𝘴𝘰𝘮 in the county championship down here. That's probably the last time I kind of picked up a hurley. There's myself and 6 of my mates that are involved with the under 20 Mount Sinai team. So other than just going through a few drills with them and training, that's probably the last time. Yeah. Haven't really since, and to be honest, not really missing it as much as maybe I might have thought. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like hurling throughout your life has been, just like talking to Colm about his book there, a labour of love. But like, do you think there will reach a point where you'll be like, oh God, I missed this thing again, or just by being involved in coaching, you've still got your toe in, I suppose?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I can't really answer that question as of yet, but look, I'm enjoying the time off. I think it was a bit of weight off my shoulders actually, taking the time and trying to grow the love, I suppose, back. Look, it's not back as of yet. It's been too short of a time, but look, who knows what the next few months will hold. I suppose, like as I said from the start, I'm always going to be playing with the club and stuff like that. So like I'm hurling and GA obsessed, so I can't see it not coming back if you get me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sure, you're only 28, so you do have time, albeit probably wouldn't want to leave it too long if you want to come back and make a big impact.
Definitely.
Can I ask you about coaching though? So like, how did you get involved with the Mount Sinai under 20s and what's it been like?
Yeah, so I suppose the last few years I've been involved with a good few teams up in Mount Sinai from under 14, I suppose, up until the under 20s this year, but kind of always been, I suppose, up around the underage and stuff like that. And to be fair, it's not just me. It's, I think, out of our senior panel, I'd say 80% of them are involved with teams up there. So it's a great thing to see the lads that are playing senior level to be coaching the young lads. But last year, one of the lads just asked would 5 or 6 of us like to get involved with the under 20 team next year, which is the current team at the moment. And we said we would. Like we know it's always this time of year, so it gave us something to do, I suppose, more so than at this time of year. And we're really enjoying it. We're actually in the county final now, looking like next weekend. The Western final is actually on this weekend, so we'll know more then. But yeah, it's good. We're kind of putting the lads through their paces as well as having a crack with them as well, because like, at the end of the day we play with, I think it's 6 or 7 of them, so it's enjoyable. It's very enjoyable, especially doing it with our mates. And look, I love the coaching side of things. I've been involved with, like, as I was saying, a few teams over the last few years and really enjoyed it. It's like a break away from playing as well, and like you'll be learning a lot, coaching every age, and then even I suppose when you're doing your own training, you're always trying to pick up little bits off the caliber of coaches that you've played under, I suppose, over the last number of years.
What sort of coach would you be? Bit of carrot, bit of stick. You know, you can't be nice all the time, but you can't be harsh all the time. What's your approach?
Yeah, that's kind of basically the main way I'd be. If the lads are doing stuff right, fair play, we'll continue on. But if they're doing stuff wrong, you kind of have to lay down the law. You're not there as a friend, I suppose. You're there as a coach. That's probably the main way I'd be, because like realistically, like if you're sitting down in the clubhouse up there, like you could be sitting with some of them, like, so they could see it as your friend. And it's the same with all the lads. Like you have to know the time and the right place, I suppose, to kind of give it to them a small bit, but also not too much, but also then praise them when they need to be praised. Yeah, so.
And are you manager or a coach?
Just a coach.
Okay. What sort of, like, do you kind of take drills that you'd have done with the county and just apply them to the young lads?
Yeah, so I suppose some of the drills I would, being honest, like at this time of year, it's hard to kind of do a lot. Like in 𝘰𝘮𝘢𝘰𝘮, we've only a small patch. I'd say it's not even 60 yards with light at this time of the year, like on the field. So it's kind of a lot of ruck ball, short ball that we're kind of doing and stuff at the moment. But yeah, so say during the summer, if I was training the team, like a lot of the drills be from coaches that I would have had previous. Yeah.
Any particular ones that you like? I know it can be hard to explain them sometimes without, having little figurines or whatever.
I just like, to be honest, I love short and snappy kind of drills where the ball is just flying around, and just trying to get the lads to be hurling as quick as they can. Like kind of at the start of the year, say a few years ago, when we had the under 15 team, it was a lot of time spent in the ball alley, just hitting the ball as much as we possibly could, getting them used to hitting the ball from on both sides on the move and static. So when they go out in the field, then they can try and transfer that movement into the drills that they're doing now.
When was the last time you were sort of, the way some people say they're in the zone when they're out in a hurling pitch or whatever, and like just when you were out there absolutely loving it, whether it's club or county, can you remember the last time you were just like, geez, this is where I want to be?
I actually think probably this year we played I think it was 𝘱𝘗𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 in the prelim quarter final, I think it was, and it was actually back centre back. It was first time in just a good few years that I was back there, and I just felt enjoyment in it again. I suppose, and it's fucking followed suit the following week. But unfortunately the result didn't go our way. But they're probably the last time, I suppose. Before that, probably on a training field is probably the main place where I would have seen it, because you're kind of having to crack with the lads, but you're also learning and improving your game and your fitness. So yeah, there's a few moments over the year definitely that I've felt it, but yeah, the most recent one's probably the 𝘱𝘗𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 game. Yeah.
And what about with Waterford? Can you remember when you were last like absolutely loving it?
To be honest, at the start of this year, I really was. I suppose I worked hard January, February to try and get myself right, and I felt like I was coming good, coming okay. Coming on a few league games, felt myself actually getting around the field a bit better than I have probably at that time of year in previous years maybe. But then against 𝘬𝘂𝘃𝑝𝑒𝑟𝑒𝑟𝑒 then, I think pulled the muscle, had me up for a good while. So that kind of put a quick halt to it. But yeah, the start of the year coming on those league games, Dublin, Laois, those games, I felt like I was getting going again. But as I went, then I ended up having an injury torn year again. So I think that had a big part to play in me kind of stepping away and trying to get my body right again, and trying to get the hunger back, because when you're starting, it's not enjoyable. And look, I have to praise some of the lads that are doing it. Some of the injuries that lads getting to come back from, and having the mental capacity to be able to come back probably better than they were nearly before is unreal. And you have to praise the lads for that. Yeah.
Would you have spoken to any players who took a year out before and then came back? Like there's a lot of Dublin lads, for example, who would have done that and come back and won All Irelands.
I haven't, been honest. No, I haven't. This was completely a decision I wanted to make on my own accord. So to be honest, I kind of knew for a while, but just I made sure I gave myself enough time to decide instead of making a rash decision. So look, I'm happy with the decision I made, and hopefully it can turn again.
Yeah, so the last couple of seasons where you had been pushing close, not this past season, but the previous seasons when you'd gone relatively close, and you were playing big games against Limerick at Croke Park and down in the Munster Championship. Like it did feel like you were right on the cusp there, and like you were playing some brilliant stuff yourself. Maybe one or two seasons before that hadn't gone great, but in the big games you were starting to really, really come of age and take over. So, like, did it feel like you were right there on the edge?
Yeah, it definitely did. 100% it did. Like, I know the last few seasons haven't gone to plan, but we always believe at the start of the year with the panel of players that we have that we can definitely do something. And I suppose going into those games against the the Limerick that you were saying there, like we fully believed we were going to win those games, and like maybe one or two of the games, if we made a decision a different way, we possibly could have. Like you don't know, but look, it's something that we just had to learn from, and unfortunately, the last few years didn't go to plan. But even the game last year, like we were just about there. I think that again, similar to the year before, took a lot out of us, maybe mentally more than anything, and we just didn't recover from it. So we just have to learn how to, I suppose, mentally recover, maybe quicker than physically recover. I think is a big thing that maybe Waterford need to do.
When you're playing against Limerick, so like we've seen this, I suppose, a little bit with Tony Kelly as well. They won't necessarily man mark you, so maybe it gives you an opportunity to roam. Like, so are you just basically not man marked, and whoever's in that zone will try and pick you up, or how would you try and exploit it as an opposition player?
Yeah, look, that's exactly what they do, to be honest. And to be fair to them, why would you man mark a player when you have the caliber of players that they have? Like, it don't matter who's marking you, because they'll all do the similar job on you, like, you know. So trying to exploit it is, I think that's the question everyone is trying to figure out. It's hard. I think Limerick, or sorry, Galway came closer to it maybe in the All-Ireland semi-final 2 years ago, I think it was. They had a lot of shots from out the field, and God, if they got 50% of those, I think they mathematically they probably would have won. Like, so maybe shooting out the field, but then if you're shooting out the field, then you have the likes of Grow Degarty, Cian Lynch, Darragh Donovan, Will O'Donoghue, Tom Ardsley, all just about to just waiting to like swarm you then as soon as you start doing that. So it's a tough one to figure out, being honest. But it's up to the management of all the inter-county teams to figure that one out, not me. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about Tony Brown being involved with Tipperary. And it's funny with Owen Kelly being involved with Tipperary. We wouldn't have seen this like 20 years ago, really, would we? Like Mickey Hart's even going to Derry, for example, bitter rivals and all that kind of stuff. Would you have given Tony, a former or a Mount Sion fellow colleague, would you have given him a bit of a slagging over it?
No, not at all. Sure. Like, I'm not saying this in a mad way, but like, who am I to be slagging Tony Brown? Like, growing up, he was one of my idols. Like, so anytime I see him, it's just general chit chat. Like, very rarely even bring up anything outside of either Mount Sion or just, I suppose, general life. Like, he's never asking me how Waterford are going. I never asking him how Tipper are going. You know, so it's kind of like that mutual respect kind of thing that you don't say it, and then you just kind of play it away. And we're always talking about the underage on the club then as well. Like, so. Like, any time I would have seen Tony, I suppose, over the last few years was always in Mount Sion. Whether he was up with the underage or watching a game, like, so it was always just talking about the club, I suppose, yeah, anytime I was talking to him.
And what about Owen Kelly then? Because anytime I've chatted to him, like, this man intensely loves his hurling. And I'd there be thinking, I'll ask Owen a few questions here, find out a little bit about this, that and the other. And he seems to be so inquisitive. He's there asking questions. What are your interactions with Owen Kelly? What were they like?
I actually found him brilliant. I felt, in my opinion, I felt like he was trying to learn off us as much as we were trying to learn off him, which is a great trait as a coach to have. Like, like some of the drills he does is just short and snappy drills that were just off the charts. Like, he was demonstrating them, and he was doing them better than many of us. Like, so, no, I found him brilliant, and he's a great crack as well. We had a good buzz with him in the change room as well. Like, and he I remember he took over one drill, and it was actually around the time I was injured, and he asked me to just give him a hand with it, and we ended up having a right buzz off of that now. Two of us were laughing and joking for the whole time he was doing it. So, no, I think he's very good. I think he's like a sponge. He wants to soak in and learn as much as he possibly can, which is a great trait, again, as I said. And he's doing that with Davy and with us. So it was. I really enjoyed my time underneath him, and look, I wish him all the best this year, especially, and whatever he kind of does in the future, I suppose. There's no doubt that we'll cross paths again, hopefully.
And would you have ever done a bit of, I suppose, ball wall or a bit of like crossbar challenge with him, or who'd be the king of that in Waterford?
No, we never really done any ball wall sessions now. Crossbar challenge, sometimes we used to do it, and used to be different winners every time. Remember, there was a couple of sessions. There was only a few of us at the recover from injury, and it was actually he showed us a kind of his free technique, and it was just funny how relaxed he is getting the freeze. Like, and I remember we were doing it, and it fully works. Like, the more locked up you are, the more you're the more you possibly drag the free or something like that. But he was just saying just totally relax and just strike through the ball, and every time he done it, I went over the bar. So it was just like picking up small little bits off him. Like I remember even hitting shots even before training or anything like that. Like he used to be in behind the goal hitting puckets, like, and he used to be just zinging the ball to fellas. Like it was just, we'd be all out the field laughing and saying like it's just gifted, like, you know. So just learning off him was a big thing this year, I think.
Do you ever feel pressure when you're taking frees? I'd imagine Owen Kelly doesn't really anyway, but would you?
No, I actually never did. Never really did. Like I suppose I wouldn't. I can be honest. I never really practice them much either. Like I find sometimes over practicing it kind of affects you. Like like even a small thing was I actually watched the Ronnie O'Sullivan new film documentary that came out there, and he was saying the same thing. He used to over practice, and then you're mentally fighting the battle. So he just said he just had to set his timer on his phone. Whenever that goes, he just puts down the cue kind of thing. Like, and I'd kind of be like that. Like 4 or 5 frees, that'd be enough for me. Like, grand an hour I'm aiming. Like, so never really practiced much, but I never really feel pressure hitting them either. No.
And the same with sideline cuts. Do you ever just think there's 80,000 people here and everybody in the stadium is staring at me putting this ball down?
No, never.
You've never scuffed the sideline like the rest of us.
I have. I've scuffed a lot now, to be honest, as well. But no, I never really feel pressure. Like you'd be totally, I suppose, tuned into the game so much that you can't really think about what's going on the other side. Like, you know, there's so many tactics in the game now that you're going to have to just be tuned in and stuff. So you don't really take time to. You actually don't get time to get nervous in a way. Your nerves they come in before the game, but it's in the warm up starts, then they kind of get out of you.
If you could go back to I suppose were you 18 when you scored that goal against Cork in Thurles, the one with the Maisie solo? If you could go back to that 18-year-old Aussie and say, well, look, this is what your hurling career is going to be like. This is what you need to prepare yourself. What sort of advice would you give to 18-year-old Aussie?
Jesus, a lot, to be honest. I'd probably the main thing I'd probably say is don't overdo things. I suppose when you have the chance, really, like I know I was just going to look after the body a bit more, which is probably something I didn't do as much as I should, which is probably why I'm getting so many injuries now. And they're probably the two biggest things: is look after your body a lot more than you have. I suppose is probably the biggest one, and then always take the time you need to get a refresh, but don't take too long, which I have done in previous time as well. Then.
And when you say don't overdo things, are you talking about stuff on the pitch, or what do you
mean? Both, really. Both on and off the field. Like you can get mentally drained from being asked to do a presentation and do different things, like go to different events and stuff like that. Like you can get drained completely. Like and look, it's a privilege to be asked to do those things 100%. I'm not saying that, but I think if I'd probably pick and choose which ones to go to again, because just so small little things probably did have an effect on either a training night, a gym night, or a match day, like in my head kind of thing, like, and draining wise. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Because I was going to say, sometimes when you overdid it, it led to, on the pitch, led to some of your best moments, like that goal in 2014 against Cork, the 2017 one against Cork. So sometimes taking the piss with the ball actually really worked for you.
Yeah, look, and I think like that's one thing that, like, those things that I suppose that you just kind of mentioned there, like they're things that I've been trying to do in my back garden since I was 7 or 8, like just messing around, like. So I think on the field, any management I suppose that I've ever had was the biggest thing was just express yourself, and they say that to everyone. Like, and I suppose maybe I try to express myself a bit more than others, and maybe it backfires sometimes and it works other times. Like, so yeah, just have to give the good with the bad, I suppose. Yeah.
Have you been watching a lot of the club stuff? And obviously, I'm just going to ask you about Ballygunner, and they're playing Clonlara this weekend in what should be a brilliant final. Do you watch games on all the time, or do you take time away from it?
No, I watch all the games. To be honest, any game doesn't tell you I'll be watching, whether it's hurling or football. To be honest, as I said, I started looking just GA obsessed, like, and sometimes it might be a good thing for me, but no, I definitely watch anything that's on the telly.
Yeah, how good is this Ballygunner team? And we know they've won 10 in a row in Waterford, and you've probably felt the pain from them a few times. Can they be stopped here?
I don't know, being honest. They're a well-oiled machine. They have everything in place. They never change from the system they're set. Teams have tried numerous things the only year to try and stop their system, but it's you stop one of their players and then another. Like you say, for instance, you stop Desi, then you have Patrick Fitzgerald to worry about. You stop Patrick Fitzgerald, then you have 𝘱𝘂𝘰 to worry about. You stop 𝘱𝘂𝘰, then you have Peter Ho, and like it's just never ending. Like, and then you have the subs that they roll on as well. So look, it's a very, very, very tough challenge to stop him. And look, Clonlara won't be up against it on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. But if you know, like, and I suppose maybe Waterford teams over the last few years know a bit more. If Clare teams, they never say die attitude. Like, so I do think Ballygunner will have too much for him, but I don't think it'll be a heavy defeat. Definitely not. I think it'll be a lot closer than possibly people are thinking.
How do you think Clonlara's mindset will be? Because they played brilliantly in the first half against Kildangan, should have been miles ahead. Kildangan get 2 red cards, then score 4 or 5 in a row, and Clonlara looking down the barrel of failing against 13 men, and they somehow pull it around. So what way do you think they're coming out of that game thinking?
Yeah, look, I think sometimes actually being down a man or down 2 men, or sorry, being up a man or up 2 men, sometimes actually backfires because, like, say they have a spare man, then the other players might slacken off a small bit because they think, right, the spare man is there, so we're okay. Like, and the other team has to work harder, get around the field a lot quicker and stuff like that. So sometimes it does backfire. Like if you look back at the 𝘬𝘂 final with Waterford and Cork, like same thing. Waterford went down to 14 men. Everyone thought Cork could drive on, but Waterford upped it and looked like Cork were a small bit of limber. Like, so it depends on how quick you adjust to being a man up or a man down, I suppose. But if I could say one thing to Clonlara is I'd probably worry about themselves a lot more than I'd worry about Ballygunner, because if they end up going through, probably the Ballygunner team, they'll be like, oh Jesus, they can act away. Like, so make sure you you play your own game against them. Look, it'll take a mammoth effort to get over the line, but just play your own game against them is probably the biggest thing. Don't try and change too much. That's after getting you to a club monster final. Which is a massive honour in itself, like, you know.
And do you have to try and stay structured against Ballygunner? Like, sometimes we talk about maybe sit back off them, let them have the ball inside their own 45 and then let them hit a wall at that stage. Or do you try and play them with chaos, like press right up on top of them and hope that you can sort of scramble their brains that way? Because like 𝘂𝘂𝘁, to be fair, pushed up high on them I should say that they allowed Ballygunner to go short. Well, Ballygunner tried to work it out. They sort of showed them the sideline, ended up turning them over, and that was quite good. So what would you say?
Like, the one thing I will say about that is Ballygunner very rarely change our system anyway. So whatever way you do it, they're going to keep doing the same thing. It's up to you it's up to, I suppose, your team and your teammates, whether you're structured enough and have the mental capacity to last that for the 60 minutes. If you're breaking them down the first 5 or 6 minutes, will you be able to still do it in the 56, 57 minute, like, in an active way? And that's a massive thing, because Ballygunner's fitness is, like, again, against the 𝘂𝘂𝘁 last day, they finished strong. Granted, nearly conceded another goal at the end with David Dempsey, but they still finished strong. They kind of pulled away a small bit. The goal brought 𝘂𝘂𝘁 back into it. Like, you have to be nip and tuck with Ballygunner going down the straight to have a good chance. If they're 5 or 6 points ahead, that 5 or 6 points could turn into 12 points in a matter of seconds. Like, and that's just because their structure is and their game plan is just so good. Like, you know, so, and their fit men, their subs come on. They don't weaken the team, like, you know. So they probably have a few finishers on their subs bench as well. Like, so it's tough. It's tough to do. Like, if you're giving the ball short, you're giving the ball short to the likes of Deneen Kenny or Tadhg Foley, who are well able to use the ball as well. Like, so it's not like you're giving the ball to a fella that's just going to catch it, just cant it down the other end of the field. Like, you know, you're giving it to the fella that's going to run it out and hand it off short if they can, and work that ball to, I suppose, that platform that they get a lot of success from.
Do you like the direction hurling is going? Because obviously tactics are coming in. In some ways, you've got the middle of the field that's got maybe 24 players or 22 players or something like that. So it's no longer a middle 8. It's just absolutely packed. Like, tactically, do you like where we're going, or, you know, what are your thoughts?
I don't see a massive thing wrong with it. I do think tactics are coming a lot more into it, but that's part and parcel of the way the game has gone. Like, the players are getting fitter, the players are getting stronger, the players are getting hitting the ball further. Like, so there's like it's just the way it's gone. Like, it's the most professional sport without being professional. Do you reckon? Like, so like, it's up to the coaches and the management to turn it around and get the I suppose the directions into the players that are simple but effective, and not try and complicate it too much. Like, if they try and complicate it too much, then obviously the players are going to be giving out and saying, sure, you told us to do this, you told us to do that, but then the management, but if you break it down simpler, so they're like, it's just it's about getting the right communication to the players and management. I think is the biggest thing. Like, and like, I don't think you're ever going to see a game that's going to be 10-9 or something like that, unless it's a hurricane outside. Like, I do think games are still going to be high scoring games and stuff like that. Like, but again, it's up to the players. Like, if a team is sitting back on you, then try and get your shooters out to a half back line and midfield to put the ball over, to drag another team out, then leave the ball inside. Like, and that's like, it's just small little tactics, I think, that'll work better than I suppose trying to go into football tactics, I suppose, if you prefer want the word. Yeah.
Who's your favourite player to watch at the moment, and why?
Favourite player to watch at the moment is probably 𝘱𝘬𝘂𝘀, to be honest. He just gives everything on the field, and he's tough, hard, and he's honest. Like, it's like there's a never say die attitude in him. Like you could easily pick any of the 15 in Limerick. Like, they're just monsters. And so, but yeah, probably at the moment it's probably 𝘱𝘬𝘂𝘀, yeah.
And Aaron Gillane, do you think he was a fitting hurler of the year?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like, I said it. I'd say at the semi-final stage, it's like a mad way to say it, but it's his to lose, I think, because the year he's after having has been phenomenal. Like, and he's just getting bigger and stronger and faster. Like, so it's and it's so much even for Patrick as well, having himself, Keane and Donald Burns, I suppose, winning 3 hurler of the years in the last few years is that's an unbelievable achievement for one club. Like, so he was definitely a fitting winner for me anyway. Yeah.
Would you know many of those Limerick lads away from the pitch?
Not massively, no. I had a few conversations with a few of them before, but nothing massive, I suppose. No.
Who'd be your best friend from another inter-county team that you'd have been, close enough with over the years?
I suppose there's a few lads that I would have done very well with, if we're on any kind of trips or games or anything like that. But I suppose recent years I would have been over and back every so often with Owen Murphy to Kilkenny. Like, even small little things, like small little things, like even if I run a lad, like say Mansoyne on the last man standing, like he'd enter for me and I'd enter the 𝘱𝘠𝘀 last man standing, like stuff like that. Like, so he'd probably one that's probably in contact mostly over the last few years. Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about Dessie Hutchinson and Patrick Fitzgerald, 2 brilliant forwards for Ballygunner. Could you see them both like operating together for Waterford next year?
100%, definitely. No doubt about it in my mind. Anyway, they definitely could. Patrick came in last year and he honestly done stuff in training. That was just off the charts. He just glides across the field like it's he's a serious operator now, to be honest. And having Dessie beside him then, like, that's two cornerbacks worst nightmares, to be honest. Yeah, definitely 100% could see the two of them involved inside the war for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like, and obviously I know you don't want to be critical of the manager. You may be going back in at some point. Hopefully you will. But like, do you feel like you got the most out of yourselves? People are very critical in terms of how the team set up and players. For example, you had midfielder in cornerback, or maybe Dessie out midfield or whatever. Like, there was a lot of noise around you. Yeah,
there was, but like, I don't know it might sound a bit cliche, but like, majority of fellas don't listen to the stuff outside. Like, I know it is hard to listen to it or not to listen to it, but like, you kind of can't. If you don't, it'll cause a negative energy inside the camp. Like, and the easiest thing to do is when you're losing, to create that negative energy. Like, it's about trying to be as positive as you possibly can inside the camp. Like, and I think we did actually do that last year. You could see that in the last game against Tip. Like, we went out and we were given no hope. We were massive outsiders, but we just hurled for ourselves and for the management. Like, and that was the big thing. We wanted to prove that, like, we're not a bad team. We're just making silly mistakes that are costing us big time. Like, and that's the biggest thing. Like, I know personal side of things. I have massive respect for Davy and the management that's in there, and I hope they do extremely well this year, even though I won't be there this year. Like, if they won the All-Ireland, I'd be the first man to congratulate every one of them, and that's been honest with you. I do think he's the right man for the job. I do think if he gets everyone fit and ready, Waterford will have a serious say, being honest.
And will you be doing any travelling next year, or it's just stepping back from the hurling?
To be honest, just stepping back. I've 3 weddings next year, and so there are 3 stags then as well. Like, so it's just doing stuff that I've never been able to do before, really, to be honest. Outside of probably this time of year, like, and like haven't been able to, even small little things, like, even it might sound a bit mad, like, but like good few of my mates go out, say, for the Friday at Cheltenham and stuff like that. Like, but I used to be in there drinking 𝘱𝘗𝘢𝘗𝑆 and sometimes not even in there at all. In case someone said something about something, like, it was just that finicky down here that, like, if I was seen in the pub, it got back to someone and automatically I was drinking, like, even though I was training 4 hours later, I can't really, like, so that was hard to do, like. So even this year, just been able to have a few drinks with my mates on I suppose on Gold Cup Day is something so simple, but something that I've never been able to do before. So and that's been honest, just trying to enjoy the simple things, like.
Yeah, because like I would have thought that any team that's gonna go well together, they need to be able to go out together and have the crack and have a bit of a social life. So, like, let's say you play a match on a Saturday, go out and enjoy yourselves, and then you're talking about the crack then at training on Tuesday about whatever 𝘗𝘳𝘢𝘗𝘀 did the other night. That all builds it. I mean, sometimes it is too serious.
Yeah, it is. Look, I think so. Like, you look at the likes of the rugby lads and the soccer lads, like, they go out for their few pints and they're back in training either the next morning, next evening, or 2 days later, or whatever setup they have. But, like, sometimes you might be like, I do think a big thing within GA is that when GA players go out, because they think in their head, right, I don't know how long I might get annoyed out with the lads for a while here now, might just go a bit over the top and might be struggling to follow more. And if there was training called or something like that, like, so, like, if there was a leash extended a small bit, I think it'll benefit a lot of teams. Like, and look, but that's my opinion, and I don't know if I'm right, wrong, or no one knows whether they're right or wrong, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, look, just before we finish up and I'll let you go because you've been great with your time. Do you think beyond Ballygunner and Clonlara, I think we're both going to say that we put Ballygunner as favourites. Who would you have next in line then? Like, how do you see I don't know how much you'd have seen of 𝘱𝘉𝑁𝑒il and Cushendall. How do you see that going? How do you see St. Thomas's doing? How do you see 𝘕𝑓𝑖NA against O'Loughlin's going?
I haven't seen much of the Ulster Championship game, to be honest. I've seen a good bit of the Leinster, and I've seen a small bit of highlights on Twitter with the 𝘗𝑔𝑚, like, and look, what you're going to get with Thomas's. Thomas's are after winning numerous titles in 𝘗𝑔𝑚 the last few years, like, so what you're going to get with them. I think O'Loughlin's are going to be a bit of, like, not a surprise package for anyone, but, like, as in, it's not Ballyhale, if you get me, like, like Ballyhale have dominated Kilkenny the last few years, so, like, even last weekend, O'Loughlin's, like, they kind of dug it out when they needed to dig it out. They have those players that are just all hard, like the likes of Paddy Deegan, Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, like that's a solid, serious, like, trio in the back line, like, so it'll take a serious forward to take those down. So I think O'Loughlin's will come out there. Look, up the north, it's going to be a fair good game on Sunday. I probably can't call that one, to be honest. If going on previous years, you'd probably be looking at maybe 𝘱𝘉𝑁𝑒il because they have the experience with the football as well. Maybe coming out, I don't know. But then you have Cushendall, like that, Neil McManus, Owen Campbell, and the boys that are there, like, and they're going to bring everything. So look, I've been honest, I probably can't see anyone stopping Ballygunner. But it's up to the other 3 teams to prove me wrong, I suppose. Yeah, but look, Ballygunner are definitely top of the charts.
Yeah, we have some good positive comments coming in for you here. Aussie's one of the most talented hurlers I've seen, says James Daly. Unbeatable on his day, will be missing the championship next year. Thankfully, Limerick won't have to face him. Aussie will be missed, says Traumspieler. Great player, would also miss the annual verbals between Aussie and Tony Kelly. What's the beef between you guys? I hadn't pre-read that one, so feel free to not answer that if you don't want to.
No, there's no beef at all, like, at all. There's nothing there between us, like, it never has been. I suppose people just maybe trying to make something that's something there that's not there. Being honest, there's nothing there at all.
That can often happen. Aussie killed me in fantasy hurling the COVID year. He absolutely caught fire and was listed as a back. Killed my team by not having him. And then a final thing, Richard Hogan. Has Aussie worked as a coach with either Darren Ryan or John Meany in Mount Sion? And who would he say is the better coach? Winky wink. You can say no comment if you want.
Yeah, they were involved. They were actually our senior manager and selector for a few years. I'm going to say no comment because I'm related to one of them. So can't have him giving out, and I can't have the other fella giving out either. So I'm going to say no comment. Yeah.
Okay, well, Aussie, look, really appreciate you joining us on the show, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yeah, perfect, no problem at all.
Okay, great to have Aussie on there. Delighted to say we now have Frankie Dolan joined us of St. Bridget's. Frankie, how are things with you?
Good, Shane. You're catching me at a bad time, but
I believe you're driving the post van, are you?
I am, yeah. Very busy at the moment with the lead up to Christmas, yeah. So great crack.
Yeah, you're probably kind of over and back to the depot, picking up all sorts of stuff, dropping off Santa's presents. Just early actually to be dropping them off.
It's been dropped off the last few weeks, Shane. Yeah, unfortunately, well, it's probably good for business that we're so busy, but not good for the body.
And how are things with you? Like, I mean, obviously it's a huge weekend for St. Bridget's coming up against Corofin in the club final in Connacht. You've been there before, you know what it's like. Has it captured the imagination locally?
Well, I'm living in Roscommon town now, Shane, the last 20 years. So I would imagine up in Kiltoom, yeah, it's starting to liven up a bit. I suppose there's a bit of rivalry there over the last few years. So I'm sure on Sunday there'll be good crack in Hyde Park on Sunday with Corofin coming to town, and should be a good crowd there as well, and should be good banter in the terrace, I'd imagine. And
like Corofin have obviously been here before. They won those 3 in a row All-Ireland titles. I suppose everybody in Connacht was sick of the sight of them there for a while. The team has changed a little bit, but they've added some real quality. A couple of those corner forwards look very tasty. They seem to have refreshed where they needed to.
They have, yeah. Kevin Johnson came in there and he's done a good job over the last few years. I know they won a couple of leagues and they won the county final this year, and it was actually at the county final against Mike Cullen. And Mike Cullen, I know we're missing Sean Kelly that day, but Corofin were full value for the money. They were 6 points up going into injury time and played the better football. And he's a nice blend of youth and experience there, and they seem to be clicking now as Corofin would normally do come this time of the year, and that could be a worry for Bridget's on Sunday. But in saying that, I'd expect Bridget's to have a really top performance. They'll need a really top performance, probably play the best to have this year to try and topple Corofin. But it should be an intriguing game. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I suppose St. Bridget's semi-final against Mohill, some people would have been expecting it to be a routine enough win, but it was 1-7 to 8 points. Like Bridget's really had to work all the way to get that victory.
They did, Shane. It probably didn't help the conditions that day in Hyde Park. Was wet. It was very breezy. Eamon O'Hara's side, Mohill, they set up very defensively. They got a lot of bodies behind the ball, and Bridget's struggled a lot to break it down. But I suppose one thing you'd have to give credit to Mohill for the defensive shape that they had of a big, strong physical team. Whereas Bridget's probably liked the drier ground, the drier ball, and a nice day to play football. So that probably didn't help Bridget's either. But it probably won't do them any harm either. They had the quarter-final against Strandhill. It was more or less like a challenge game, and whereas the last day they had to dig deep, and Ben O'Carroll showed us a bit of quality in the second half to drag Bridget's over the line. And I'd expect the game on Sunday to be a really good game. I'd expect the two teams to be going at it. Bridget's probably might be a little bit more defensive than the probably teams that I would have played with over the years. But I'd like to think Bridget's would go at the game a bit more than they did against Mohill. If they don't, I just think Corofin will have too much for them. I just think Bridget's need to ask a lot of questions and take the handbrake off as such, and test Corofin and see what they really like defensively.
And when you saw Brian Stack going down in that game against Strandhill, were you fearing the worst? He, of course, came back just during injury time the last day out. You must have been fearing the worst when you saw him going down.
Yeah, it's not like Stacky. It's very seldom that he is injured, Shane. Now, I know he hasn't done a lot the last couple of weeks. He came on for 2 or 3 minutes against 𝘱𝘓, where they needed him. But I would imagine that he should be okay for Sunday. Bridges would definitely need a player of his calibre and experience in that full back line to probably marshal maybe the likes of Gary Sice or Jack McCabe or someone like that. So if he was to be missing, it would be a serious loss for Bridges. And I couldn't see how they'll beat Corofin. But if Brian is playing, it definitely gives us a chance. He marshals the defence very well. He's been playing really good football with the club and county over the last 2 years. So hopefully he be fit, Shane. We need him fit, and it'll make it more intriguing to say if he is fit. You know what I mean? That the best players for both teams are on the pitch on Sunday, and hopefully it'll live up to the expectation of games gone by.
Yeah, for a spell, Corofin looked like they were going to just dismiss Ballina, and Ballina had their injury issues, of course. 𝘱𝗶𝗴𝘰𝘮 wasn't there. They had another player who went off early during the game. I just can't remember who it was off the top of my head. 𝘧𝘳𝘰𝘮, that's who it was.
𝘧𝘳𝘰𝘮, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you couldn't say that Ballina were at 100%. And still in all, they came back and brought it very close during the second half. So it's maybe not yet the Corofin of old. So do you feel like there are areas, and where do you think Bridges can get at Corofin?
They're definitely not the Corofin of old. Like, you mightn't see a team like that again to win 3 All-Irelands in a row. That was a superb team. Now they are coming again they've obviously brought in youth there, and that bit of experience is still there that they've had that got them to win All-Ireland finals. So where can Bridges maybe make hay? I think maybe around midfield. If Eddie Nolan and Shane Canan can at least break even, I'd expect them to at least break even. They're 2 big men. They're 2 inter-county footballers. So I think in around that area, that middle third is going to be crucial for Bridges on Sunday. Breaking ball is going to be key. And getting probably faster ball into the likes of Bobby Nugent, Ben O'Carroll, Conor Hand, Kieran Sugar, these type of players. They're fast, pacey players. And the quicker Bridges can get ball into them, the better. But if it's slow, lethargic, them players are going to get frustrated, and eventually they'll end up coming out too far out the pitch to really do any damage. So I just think that's an area that Bridges need to really try and get on top of. And if they can, they'll have a chance. But if they don't, I think they'll struggle.
Okay, and just to get a prediction in terms of this game, how do you see it going?
Jesus, if I didn't say Bridges, I'd be shot on Sunday. But I'll think with my head more than my heart here. I just think Corofin might have that little bit too much on Sunday. They obviously bet 𝘱𝘱, who were one of the favourites for the All-Ireland. So Corofin, I think, with the youngsters they've brought into the side over the last few years, and that experience they have on the pitch and on the bench, they have a decent bench as well, in fairness to Corofin. I just think it might be a little bit too much for Bridges on Sunday, but I hope I'm wrong, Shane.
And beyond that, who do you think are the real favourites for the Club All-Ireland?
Obviously, Kilmacudder's still there. They're playing Leinster final against Naas. I'd expect them to get over the line there. You have the Glen up north. I had a fancy for the Glen from the outset. I still think they'll be thereabouts. They're just doing enough to get through. They're in the Ulster final. I don't know an awful lot of down south at the moment. Dingle and the team for Cork. I can't think of it. Castlehaven. Yeah, the 2 good sides. You know what I mean? But in saying that, if Corofin, Bridges come out of Connacht, Connacht club football is always strong. But I'm going to go from what I thought on the outside. I still fancy the Glen to go a step further than they did last year and possibly win the club title.
Yeah, and can I ask you then about Roscommon and year 1 under Davy Burke? How do you think they did? And there's been a bit of a turnover. The likes of Mark McHugh has gone. Some players are away to Australia. Some lads are back. Are you happy with where Roscommon are going?
Yeah, well, Roscommon, as you all know, Roscommon doesn't have a big pick of players or clubs. We've only 12 senior clubs. Done reasonably okay last year. We're still in Division 1, which is probably key. Players want to be playing that high level of football, league football especially. Championship didn't go overly great. Draw with Dublin and Croke Park, and not getting over the line against Kildare and Cork. It's disappointing. Wasn't what probably Davy Burke and his management team wanted. The way to finish the year, they definitely would have wanted to got to a quarter final. So that in that respect, that was disappointing. They've lost a number of players for next year, which is not going to help the situation. Key players as well. I know Ronan Daly and 𝘱𝘳𝘰𝘮 are supposedly coming back on board, which will be a help. But Ultan hasn't been playing football the last year, so it'll be probably tough for him to get up to that level again. Ronan Daly definitely is a plus to get back. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, it's Division 1 football is going to be cutthroat for them this year. They possibly might struggle this year with the players have lost. That's a worry for me. And obviously Jerry McGowan and Mark McHugh not being involved this year, who were gone from the setup. And Lar Wall has come in to replace Jerry McGowan. Now, I don't know if he's replaced Mark McHugh yet, so it'll be interesting to see who replaces Mark McHugh, because by what I hear on the outside, he'd done a lot of good work there this year with the team, and really pushed them and had them in really good shape. So that'll be another interesting scenario, I suppose, that'll come up over the next few weeks. Who's going to replace Mark McHugh?
And how do you see, like, beyond Roscommon in terms of like the All-Ireland run next year? Like Mickey Hart's after going to Derry, so we'll see how that pans out. But who do you see anyone being able to break in amongst, I suppose, Derry, Kerry and Dublin? Galway maybe?
Possibly Galway, yeah. Like Galway definitely can be thereabouts. They were in the All-Ireland final two years ago or that. So outside of them, I don't know, with Jim McGuinness coming back into Donegal, I don't know whether they have the caliber of player to compete at All-Ireland level. It's hard to know, but probably I probably only see the likes of Galway maybe outside of them three. It's you know, I don't think there's really anyone else really going to be contending. Possibly Mayo, you wouldn't know, but could be a long shot.
I just wanted to ask you, would you have played much against Johnny Doyle over the years? Because this weekend he's with Allenwood, and he's 45 years of age, and he's going for a Leinster Intermediate Football Championship medal at midfield, no less. Quite an incredible thing he's looking to do.
Yeah, and credit to him. I've seen a few of the highlights of his games there, and he's still doing the business. So he's not just a passenger on the team. He's still scoring. He's still dictating the play. You know, credit to Johnny Doyle. I would have played against him a couple of times, Shane, but it's a long time ago. But my last time playing against Johnny Doyle, I think it could have been 2003 in Portlaoise when Roscommon played Kildare in the All-Ireland qualifiers that time. And he's probably as fit now as he was then. He's still in super shape, whatever he's doing. So credit to him. And, you know, at that age, to be competing at that level, you know, it'd be great for him to add another medal to his collection.
Yeah, he's up against Scully Connell of Dublin this weekend. Can I just ask you, what are the most cherished memories you have from your playing days, whether it's club or county or playing with a college or whatever?
Well, unfortunately, I was never in college, Shane. I went straight from school to work. But I suppose, looking back, it probably would have to be winning the Club All-Ireland with my club, St. Bridget's, back in 2013. That definitely is the highlight of my career. To be able to do it with your club, and like we were competing for a good few years trying to get up to that level, and to be able to maintain it was credit to everybody involved, players wise, and, you know, I suppose wives and partners and the club to get behind it. Like, that took probably 10 years in the making. So and to get over the line that day in a Club All-Ireland with the last kick of the game, that'll always live long in the memory. So that'll be probably my highlight of my career, Shane.
Yeah, and of course, like, that was the day when the man himself, Shane Kern, blindsided you with this. Does it still get brought up to you all the time?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time for Cake to pull a stunt like that, but he knew what he was doing that day. He knew he wasn't as exhausted as some of us were on the field that day. So he was very fresh in mind and body to know to capture the moment. I suppose he knew where the photographer was at the time.
And of course, like, the one time he did go for a burst out the field one day, didn't the hamstring go on him?
The hamstring and the back went, Shane. Yeah, he was carried off by our great physio, Pat Regan. That was in the kind of club final against Castlebar back in 2014. I think that was possibly could have been Cake's last game for Bridget's. So yeah, that's the back went and the hamstrings went, everything went, and I suppose we didn't do too bad to get the few years out of him that we did, and only for him in 2013 playing in goals, we probably wouldn't have won the All Ireland. So you know, he was some keeper now, in fairness to him.
Who's the best player you ever played with, skill wise?
Skill wise, probably. Possibly Senan Kilbride. I didn't play a lot of county with Senan, but I would have played a lot of club with him. And yeah, probably Senan is up there with probably the best player I would have played with.
Lovely left foot on him, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
he had a great left foot in him, and he also had a right foot as well when he decided to use it. But yeah, he probably up there. Senan about 6'1", 6'2", and you know, he could turn in a sixpence. Very intelligent footballer as well. And a really top fella, really nice guy on top of that. He's out living in Dubai at the moment.
Oh, lovely. And is there any, like, who's the toughest player you ever came up against? And would anyone have ever used any unusual tactics on you to try and get into your head?
Well, back when I was playing inter-county, Shane, it was man for man, and you didn't have a lot of protection. Probably, like Sean Marty Lockhart from Derry was a tough cookie. Francie Bellew from Armagh and Crossmaglen was another tough man. Seamie Moynihan was probably not really that tough, but he could read the game really well. He was a great footballer, and he had plenty of pace. Cathal Daly from Offaly, ex-All-Star as well. Cathal Daly was a tough cookie. Matthew Meehan from Galway. I found him very hard to shake off. He was physically strong and he was very athletic. He'd be Michael's brother. Decky's brother. I found him to be a really tough cookie as well. So probably 4 or 5 of them players. But there's obviously more as well that I can't think of.
And anyone particularly good at the mountain?
I'd probably give that award to probably Martin Cahill from Dublin. We would have had a couple of battles back in the early noughties, in Parnell Park especially. They got a little bit heated at times. So yeah, probably Martin was up there with the mountain, all right. Yeah, he was good at that.
And like in terms of other great players you played alongside, and you know, not just skill wise, like who are some of the lads that you really just love playing with?
Likes of Francie Grehan. Francie would have started his career in the forward line, and he ended up playing centre back for Roscommon. He was a top player. He could read the game, and he knew the ball the forwards wanted, which definitely helped us inside. So Francie was up there. And I suppose playing Railway Cup as well. Railway Cup back in the years. Jar Fallon was a class act. Pádraig Joyce, class act. Decky Meehan, Kieran MacDonald, all them fellas, Kevin Walsh, like they were some superb footballers. So Michael Donnellan, like Sean O'Dwyer, like all them lads, we would have played Railway Cup. We would have had rivalries over the years. We actually never won a Railway Cup, and we tried really hard to win the Railway Cup back when we were playing. It was a long time since Connacht won it, Shane, and we actually never could win it. And we tried to win it. John Tobin was our manager, John O'Mahony was our manager, and you know, it wasn't for the lack of trying. It was just we're coming up against some exceptional other teams, especially up north. Ulster had a serious Railway Cup team, and so did Leinster. So yeah, but them players really stood out, I suppose, when I was playing Railway Cup. They were Eamon O'Hara. They were class footballers. And
you mentioned Kieran MacDonald there, of course, the Mayo icon. What was he like in the dressing room? Was he a quiet guy? Because obviously he doesn't do many interviews. He did that one on RT there several years ago, and it was, you know, fascinating enough. What was he like in the dressing room?
Very quiet. Well, to be honest, I can't really remember back 20 years ago in a Railway Cup dressing room, but there wouldn't be an awful lot said, Shane. We didn't do a lot of training for him. Might do an odd session, but Kieran MacDonald, to me, he always done his talking on the pitch. He had an outrageous left foot on him, and he could pick a pass anywhere. He'd put it on a sixpence for you. So he's a very quiet guy. I actually done a little bit of work with him back in over 20 years ago up in Dublin. We were working on the pipeline up in Santry, the waterworks. So he was a fine specimen of a man back then. He was so fit, like he was so strong. He was deceptively strong. He mightn't have looked that tough, but like he was so strong. And he was probably up there with one of the best I've ever played with.
And before I let you go, I can't but ask you about, being a postman. What is the most unusual situation you've ended up in? Have you ever been cornered by a load of dogs or whatever?
The most unusual. I don't know if it's safe to say on this, Shane, but let me think now. I've often been cornered by a dog. They've often got the steel toe cap as well. That'd be probably about the height of it. Nowadays, you don't meet too many people out and about, being honest with you. Most people are off working or whatever, or they're not at the house these days. But yeah, off the top of my head, I'd say probably dogs, but there's probably one or two things there, but I probably can't really say.
You actually, and one further thing, you had mentioned Francie Graham there a while ago. He was Roscommon's most recent All-Star up until this year, when it was won by Enda Smith. I mean, that's a great reward for him, because he's been, I suppose, quietly excellent as far as like nationwide. You all know he's brilliant there in Roscommon, but maybe he hadn't got the appreciation beyond the county bounds.
No, and he's a very committed guy. He's very down-to-earth lad. He's really top lad with youngsters after matches and giving them time and all that type of thing, and he puts a lot of work into it behind the scenes. And he was probably lucky enough to get it, you know what I mean, with the likes of Paul Mannion not getting in and Cormac Costello and one or two more. So, but it was great for him, and it was definitely great for Roscommon as well. It was 2001 was the last time he got an All-Star. So with Francie Graham getting that, so it was probably long overdue, and it's good. It's great for him. He puts a lot into it, and to get that little bit of reward, the season mightn't have ended the way he wanted to have ended, but to get that, accolade for himself is down to probably all the hard work he's done over the last 9, 10, 12 years playing. Okay, well look, Frankie, you've been great with your time. Really appreciate you joining us, and enjoy the match on Sunday. Best of luck to the club. Thanks a million, Shane. Take care. All the best. Okay, brilliant to have Frankie on the show there. We've so much to talk about. Well, I'm going to be flying solo from here on out, but just some of the other fixtures that we haven't touched on. The Munster Club Intermediate Final is on this weekend. Castle Lions of Cork are against Corofin of Clare. The Junior Final will see St. Catherine's of Cork against 𝘕𝐹 𝘕𝑗, or should I say 𝘕𝐹 𝘕𝑗 of Limerick. Then also we've got the Ulster Club Final as well, which should be a cracker. Slaughtneil of Derry against Cushendall of Antrim. And this is a game I'd have plenty to say about. Like Cushendall, the last day out, they were against Portaferry. Everybody made them huge favourites, but maybe just a bit of a break coming into the game. Perhaps Portaferry would have the same excuse. It just looked maybe that Cushendall were wobbling. They needed that late free from Neil McManus just to get into extra time. But boy, were they impressive extra time, winning that period, 114 to 5 points. So just like I mentioned earlier with Ballyhale, in certain seasons when they looked like they were wobbling in certain games, maybe in county finals and so on. I remember against Bennett's Bridge one year, they were being pushed all the way, James Stephens another, and then they go ahead and have a great run in the All-Ireland series anyway. Slaughtneil, I don't think they've played, they haven't played in a competitive fixture for, I think, 11 weeks now. So Mickey McShane, who has been overthrown the last few years as well, he's probably asking himself, do I know exactly where my team are at just now? And haven't been in that situation before, and you play all the challenge matches, which I believe, that they will be on the challenge match circuit or have been on the challenge match circuit. You're never truly sure where you're at until it comes to the game. But I'm sure they've been through this before, so they have themselves fairly well steeled. But just in terms of have they been fully tested, they've worked back in the likes of Shane McGuigan and Jerome McGuigan back into the team there. So I'm sure they'll be looking to hit the ground running in this particular match. Just look at the quality they have, like Brendan Rodgers, Cormac O'Doherty, Paul McNeil, who I think is on the Derry football panel, Micheál McGrath, Carl McCaig, Gerald Bradley, Chrissy McCaig, of course, as well. They've won 11 titles in a row. And what a year it's been for Brendan Rodgers. You go all the way back to January, he's helping Derry go on and win a McKenna Cup. Then they get promoted to Division 1 of the league, then wins an Ulster title, wins an All-Star, plays a county football championship, and now he's chasing a provincial hurling title.
So that's some year for him. In terms of the matchups in this game, I think, will we see 𝘱𝘂 McKay going up against Neil McManus? That'd be a fascinating one. Really like to watch that. Will we see Paddy Burke up against Brendan Rodgers, maybe? Who does Owen Campbell of Cushendall pick up? Does he hold the centre? Does he do a bit of a +1 like he did against Portaferry, or does he go directly after someone? And where does Shane McGuigan play? And will he be around the middle of the field? And physically, in terms of athletically, Schlock-Neil are so strong. So will someone be looking to lock him down? And if they do, who's going to be able to keep with him? Cormac Doherty, he has to be marked as well. And then I think there's kind of a fascinating battle of young guns. Not that they'll be marking each other, but Joseph McLaughlin has been flying it this year for Cushendall. Will he be picked up maybe by Paul McNeil? He has an Ulster Schools final, actually. I think it's Friday week as well, so a busy week for him. And then Rory Mannion, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He looks a really good prospect. He's in school in Gael Coloshtadira, so he's just a brilliant prospect for them as well. So it just makes it a really tasty fixture this weekend, and again, that I'm really looking forward to. By the way, as soon as I mentioned Cushendall, might as well extend it on to Antrim, who are going to be without 5 players who are heading away next year. So they're going to be without 4 Dunloy players: Ryan Elliott, Keelan Malloy, Shan Elliott, Owen O'Neill. All huge players for the county, so that is a massive blow for Darren Gleeson. And St. Enda's clubman Joe Maskey, he's also taken the year out as well, and he's an excellent player in the half-back line. And also with Neil McManus retiring and Donal Nugent stepping away, it's really a significant hit for Antrim heading into this next season. By the way, just some news on Limerick GA. They've confirmed that in terms of John Kiley's ticket, John Flavin will be joining as a coach, and that Joe O'Connor, he'll be returning as the high performance manager. So a little bit of movement there. We'll see how it impacts Limerick, but it's hard to imagine that they're going to take anything of a backward step anyway, based on how they've been going for the last number of years. Let's see, next thing, Kildare, they're going to be playing their home games in Carlow next year rather than in Croke Park. We saw that their county final for the footballers this year was in Carlow as well, which is interesting enough, going to another county to have to play your county final. Scully, I mentioned earlier about Scully Connell being against Allenwood in the Leinster Intermediate Football Championship final. So Scull ended a 60-year wait to win an intermediate title when they beat Parnells after extra time. They went on to beat Roach Emmets by a point, needed penalties to get past Rathkenny. So it's been close games all the way for Scully Connell this year, who are referred to just basically as Scull in Dublin most of the time. Allenwood, they won their first intermediate Kildare title for the first time since 1993, so it ended a 30-year gap when I suppose Johnny Doyle was only 15 years of age. I wonder how close he was to the senior panel at the time, or sorry, the intermediate team at the time. So if he won a provincial title at age 45, I'd imagine that'd be up there with anything he's ever achieved with Kildare or throughout his career. Milltown, also of Kildare, they're in a county final. All 3 finals this weekend in Leinster feature Kildare teams. So Milltown are against Glyde Rangers of Louth. So Milltown beat Annanock in the quarterfinals, Kilbeggan Shamrocks in the semi-final, putting up 116 and 111 in their 2 games, which is probably a higher score on average than we see from Glyde Rangers, who beat Manowar of Dublin in their last game by 9 points to 7. And actually, when they won the Louth Championship, it was their first junior final in 26 years. And they've had 8 final attempts, including replays, since relegation to the grade in 2016. Just then, in terms of some of the other games that are going on this weekend in Connacht, we're going to see Owenmore Gales against Lahardane McHale's. So let me just check something here. Yeah, okay. So in terms of that, Lahardane, they won the game. They last won this title in 2017, and obviously they've dropped down again. They're known as the Titanic Village for anyone who doesn't know, because 11 of the 14 people from that parish who boarded the Titanic ship back over a century ago, they were lost at sea, and they have a big commemoration at the Attergool Titanic Memorial Park in Lahardane. So it's just kind of an interesting side plot there. They beat Menlo of Galway 5-3 in penalties after extra time, obviously, in the last round. And when they won that title 6 years ago, the All-Ireland, it was under John Maughan. Owenmore Gales, they're in their first provincial decider. They beat Glenfarne Kilty Clogher in their semi-final on a scoreline of 14 points to 1-8. And then just in terms of the ladies this weekend, Sarsfields of Galway are against Sarsfields of Cork in their All-Ireland Camogie final. So that'll be fun times for the live commentators of that match. Dicksboro of Kilkenny will meet 𝘱𝘊𝘰𝘮 Shamrocks of Antrim. 𝘱𝘊𝘰𝘮 were in the final last year. Ladies football, then Kilmacud Crokes will be against Kilkerran Clonberne, and Clonairon of Armagh will be up against Ballymacarbery of Waterford. So huge amount of stuff to come this weekend. If you want to get the audio podcast of the show, go to patreon.com/OurGame. That's it for the show, and we'll be back again on Monday.